Welcome to a new video from NigeFX about the CGPills video series. So we are going to continue talking about GeoGen from GenFX, and this time we are waiting to continue working on the terrain project we were creating, and it was related to a complete courseware about GeoGen, but this time I like to show you how to create something like a lunar surface. And the other interesting thing is to see how to play with the heighmaps to create the terrain, and maybe create a complete different or partially different heighmaps to create the colors. So let's go to Erosion, and we can check the project I created before, and that's the project you see. Essentially it is creating here the basic terrain, then it is adding details in this area, and then it is switching to something different to create the colors here in this area. So we have two heighmaps, and then everything is going together inside the renderer. As you can see, it is really nice. It is really similar to something like, for example, the moon, or maybe an asteroid surface, or maybe something like that. So we have to understand how to create something like that. So let's go to the home and a new project. Don't save. Okay, that's our basic scene, and we can use something, but we can remove completely the mask occlusion and the colorize, because we are going to create the colors in a different way. So the basic idea is to create something here playing with a basic default value, and I think we are going to use the basic stuff for the base layer, because we don't need something so complex or special. So the idea is to use this one as a basic tool. And about the warp noise, we can go with something similar to the default value too. So I think we can essentially leave everything by default. By the way, what we need in this now to work on is to add craters to the terrain. And to do something like that, we're going to add micro craters and large scale craters. So we have the 8 modifier micro crater, and we have the 8 modifier craters. Then we are going to use also warp noise there to make some variations. So warp noise to take care about this one, and we are going to blend everything together. So we can write blend heighmaps. Okay, so this one is the foreground, this one is the background, and this one is connected to the renderer. We are going to use the basic terrain to control the micro craters and the craters. So, okay, as you can see now we have some small scale, let's add a little bit more space, small scale craters. So the idea is to go and create some details using the first one, the micro craters. So the radius range is 20%, 80% on the grid sides. It's okay, and maybe we can take care about just some parameters, but maybe we can stay also with the default value. The idea is maybe just to change the scaling to the grid sides, maybe something like that. By the way, you can obviously create what you prefer, because it's not a problem. You see here you can control also the shape. We are doing some changes there in the large scale crater for the moment. So let's go here, and you can see that now we have the large scale. We're going to take care about this one, and we'll make some changes because I like to create something different. So the first thing is to go in the crater and say that we like to add a little bit less crater. Let's say, for example, 20. So you see that we have less hole over the surface. Then we are saying that the radius range, so the scaling radius for all the others are, for example, let's say 300 maximum and minimum, let's say 10. Okay, so 10 meters is the smallest one and 300 meters is the bigger one. Then about the aging, you see that the aging is changing the shape for the hole. So let's say that we have a really old holes and some are with less age. And now we are going to use the offset to move the crater ground, because then we have to add some more stuff over the ground. So let's say that we can rise up to something like that. And the warp amplitude will be useful to use the warp, because we are going to use a warp noise to make a distortion over the crater. By the way, before we can see if we like to change something, that I think we can stay with the default value, it's not a problem. So now the interesting thing is to go and use the warp drive, the warp drive, it's not a C5 movie, to use the warp to make a distortion. So let's connect this one. That's the warp, and you see it is making a distortion. So the idea is to have a really small scale distortion, so let's say maybe 50 meters. So you see that we have a lot of distortion, and then we can go to stretch the distortion, the noise. We can go for maybe something like that, and then we can maybe rotate just a little bit the folding. Then we can go lower with a warp amplitude, and then we can leave the default value. Then here we can say that we like to use less the warp. So let's say, for example, 1. Maybe we can use an higher resolution. So you see that we have some scratches. Okay, you see how it is working over the holes. Let's say maybe 2%. Okay, so essentially now we have to take care about the blending, because we are using together both, but I like to see how they can work together. So let's go in the blend, and in the blend we go for the add subtract, and then we can say to blend less. Let's say maybe something like that. Okay, let's say, because we are still working with lunar recording, we are still working with an alpha version, so you know we can have bugs or instability, so it is better to work in this way. So let's select everything, create a comment, or Ctrl G, and then let's say this one is the basic lunar surface. Okay, let's move forward. We're going to use this one in a way, adding details, and the way to add details is to create rocks and create folding. And now we can see what I mean. Let's create a folding. This one. We need a warp noise, because I like to make distortion, and I like to add rocks. 2 layers of rock. Okay. Let's go with the first one. This heighmap will be the base heighmap for this one. Okay. Let's see. You see something there, something like a breaking, and that's the faulting. So the interesting thing is to add more faulting. Let's say, for example, 4, and then let's say that the amplitude for the warp, when we are going to use the noise, it's really high, 200%. And then we go to lower heights a little bit because everything is too high. We can have a little bit less amplitude, a little bit less randomization. Then we go with the rotation. You see that we are rotating the stuff. By the way, again, this one is really artistic stuff, so you can do what you prefer. Okay, so I'm just finding something, you see, with a that is more visible in this area. You see, it is going to have a random width, so let's go with something like that. And all the other parameters can be left by default, but now we can connect the warp. Okay, and you see that it's making this kind of distortion over the breaking we just created. It is not so important how you are taking care about this one, so you can leave essentially the default. Maybe we can just go to have a different kind of noise. So you see we have a little bit less distortion, or you can use the purling and change the parameters. It's not a problem. It's up to you. You can do whatever you prefer. This one is just a way to do something. So rocks are really nice because they are useful to add rocks over the surface. So that's the structure we have right now, and obviously we are going to take care about various parameters. So let's work on the grid size to have more details. Let's say maybe maximum 400 and minimum 100, something like that. So you see we have a lot of tiny rocks. Let's go with complex, so the shape is more similar to rock sediments, more layers, so it is more complex. And then later we are going to use the warp, maybe, if we like, to make some distortion. If we like, we can use the orientation based on the slope, but we are going to use this feature on the second layer of rock. Actually, it is not useful, so let's take care about the scaling. Let's say that the smallest one is 8% and the maximum is 45%. So you see really teeny rocks over the ground, and then the other stuffs can be the default. It's not a problem. Okay, let's move forward to the next one. And again, we have a really huge scale here. So let's go to play with it. So let's leave the full value for the grid size, just a little bit more layering, and again the complex shape. Then we go to use the slope, so it is playing with the slope to have the rocks over the ground, and then a lot of variation over the shaping. Okay, you see it is really noisy and with a lot of variation. And about the scaling, let's go for maybe 15%, and the maximum is 70%. So you see we have small rocks and large scale rocks. And the 8 scale, we can have also variation in the scaling, maybe a little bit if you like, maybe just a little bit. And then that's all. Essentially we can leave it with the default value. By the way, again, if you like to have something different, you can have it without problems. Okay, now we have to start merging and blending the stuff we've done, because now we have the rocks and here we have the basic 8 maps. Okay, so let's go to add a blend, this one can stay there, and we have the rocks as the foreground, and the other one we created as a background. Okay, so you see it is going to be more and more complex than before. So let's say that the blend mode is maximum, so it is going down, so we have just some mountains around, and the other stuff can stay as default. It's not a problem. By the way, later we are going to change a little bit the the 8 maps on this side. So let's say that this one is the Ctrl G details, breaking, and rocks. Okay, and save just to be sure. Okay, next step, we created the blending, but I like to use a mask to blend the stuff. So the idea is to make a mask noise. This one essentially is a noise, pretty simple stuff. So you see, it's essentially a noise, and you can take care about this one as you prefer. So just to make a test, we go with a smaller scale, and then let's stretch over one axis, this one, and then for the other things maybe we can change a little bit the octaves ramping, so you see it's a little bit different, and then that's all. Okay, so we go back here, and obviously we are blending the stuff in a different way using the mask, so that's another nice feature we can use. Now I like to have some kind of erosion, because you know, maybe this one is something, a planet, or maybe an asteroid, or maybe a moon, and there was ice over the surface, so maybe we can have some kind of erosion due to the water. So let's go with a node that is called fast erosion. Connect the 8 maps and see what's going on. Okay, you see it is adding the erosion over the ground. So let's go to have a little bit less complexity. And then for the other stuff, maybe we can have a little bit of randomization about the intensity and about the other stuff. You know, it is not so important. Maybe we can see if this one we see can give us maybe a nicer spiky effects, and the other stuff can stay with the default value. The idea is to have maybe just a little bit less blending, so let's make it less visible, so it is just a little bit over the surface. Okay, Ctrl S to save. Now we have the fast erosion, so we have also the erosion over the ground, and now I like to create a mask occlusion because it will be useful to mix the color over the surface later. So let's make a mask occlusion node. Okay, this one will be useful connected to before the erosion. I like to see essentially the rocks, because I like to pick something about the rocks. So let's pick the rocks, and let's see what we can do with this node. We are intersecting, let's go really to have a different resolution for this one, and maybe just a little bit lower this one. And I like to change the ramping, so the mask is different than before. Let's go to something like that. we can go with a smooth, okay, and maybe the same thing. Maybe we can go with linear, or maybe the Z. Okay, and later if we need, we can change how it is looking. By the way, this mask is useful because we are going to control some kind of stuff related to the colors later, because we are going to use a color adjust later. So now we can go back to the previous one we created there, and I like to start playing with the colors. So the colors will be partially done using the rocks and partially done using a different kind of terrain. So the first thing we are going to create is a mask cavity. So we are trying to check where we have gravity. Okay. The only things let's play just a little bit with this one, and maybe the width. Okay, and then we remap this one in this way. Okay, that's enough for the moment. So the idea is to use this one. Let's see if we go to pick the mask, this one. Not bad, not bad, because you see we are just picking this area there. That's really, really nice. So we can go to the next step. The next step is to create a blend maps, because we are going to blend the two rocks we created, and we are going to use this one as a mask. So let's say that here we go for blend 8 maps, and we are going to use the two rocks. So the first one will be the background, and the second one will be the foreground. Okay, and then we go to use this one as a mask. So it is adding this kind of rocks just on some areas, and this one, remember, is useful just to create the colors, so it's not related to the shape. Okay, so also this one needs to be tweaked. So we go to add and subtract, so together, and then we go just to play with the blend intensity. So let's go really, really low to something like that. Okay, it is starting to be really nice and really interesting. So we have now also the blend together here. So now it is time to start playing with the colors. So we are going to create different kind of colors around. So let's move this one, Control S, and we're going to use different masks. So we are going to use a mask occlusion for the moment. So mask occlusion, and we're going to use these 8 maps to create it. So mask occlusion, and we go to tweaks just a little bit how it looks, to something like that. And then the next one will be a mask curvature, and we are going to create something different from this one. So mask curvature, same at map. Okay, let's tweak a little bit the details level. You see it's more detailed. This one can stay with the default value, is not a problem. And let's go to rise up this one. So we are going to pick more the upper area in this way, and then the other stuff can stay with the default value. So next mask is mask 8. So we are going to mask the altitude. mask 8. Okay, so the mask 8, let's say that the maximum altitude is something around 300 meters and the lower level is maybe something like that. So you see that we are picking just some higher area over the top here, and then we can move to the next one, and the next one will be a mask slope, so we are controlling the slope. Quindi, so mask slope. Okay, same heighmap here, and we go to take care about this one. So let's, oh, this one can stay also to do the full value, it's not a problem. We can go to take care about just a little bit the angle range to something like that. So we are picking just this area of the slope. And about the coarseness, let's go with a higher quality output, and then we change here the filter, something similar to what we done before. Okay, so it is smoother and we have a little bit better blending. We can start to create some colors. So the first one will be the colorize for the mask occlusion. So colorize, and we get to connect this one to the gradient mask. We're going to use a color gradient. I'm going to use something I created before. You see we have a lot of gradient, and this one will be essentially the gray color. So change color, let's go to a grayish color there, and then change color with the right mouse button to a darker gray. Okay, and for the other things we can stay with the default colors parameters we have. So the next one is the one connected to the curvature. So we go to create another colorize, Ctrl S to save, just to be sure. Okay, let's go to create something strange. So color gradient, and you see that we have, for example, this one with a greenish color and some bluish. So you can create something similar. By the way, yeah, you can do whatever else, it's not a problem. And the other one is the colorize for the 8. So let's go to create another colorize. And let's control the colors over this one, color gradient, and let's see if we have something like some bluish. Okay, something like that. You see that we have some gray, some bluish, and then we have some dark colors and some different color. For the other things, it's okay. We go just to have some colors around. So again, you can create whatever else, it's not a problem. And now it is time to start mixing the colors. So let's use a color mix to mix both this one and this one. So the first one is the background, the second one is the foreground. In the color mix, we have to decide how to mix the stuff. Let's go with darken, and let's say that we go for 50%. Okay, so we are mixing together the grayish and the greenish stuff. Okay, next one, we have to color mix together this one and the third one. So color mix, again, the first one is the background and the second one is the foreground. Again, we go for the subtract Okay, and we are going to use a really low amount, 10%. Nice. So remember, we had this one, then it was mixed in this way, and then we have these lines there. So we have a new colorize to be used for the mask slope there. So let's go for colorize and connect. Again, we go for a color gradient, and if you like, you can use something like that. So you see something like a reddish planet and a desert, you know. But I like to change just a little bit the mapping. Okay, so let's go to see something like that, and then you see it's a little bit strange, but it will be nice to add this one. So let's go to use another color mix, so we can mix together the first one and the last one we created. Also in this case we have to take care about this one, so let's say we go with lighten and we go really low, so let's say 20%. So you see we have some kind of really alien color, an alien planet color, but remember we like to have a moon color, so we have to work on some colors adjustment. So let's use this one and go to create a comment, colors. Okay, and save. Let's go to create a color adjustment. Color adjust. The color adjust is useful to change the color. So let's go to have this base color, and then we need the mask occlusion we created before, and in the color adjust we're going to change the saturation, so it will be more similar to a gray color in some area. But let's go to double check the masking here. So maybe let's do some small changes, and that's okay. Okay, so let's go back to this one, and let's go back in the color adjustment, and let's say that the value adjust, so you see that we have some more colors variation there. It is a little bit more visible. Let's see if we, okay, this one can stay at the full value. By the way, I like maybe to play a little bit maybe with the mask later, but I have to double check. So let's connect the color here, and then let's go out. Okay, so we have the colors. So maybe just something that needs to be tweaked. It's, let's say that maybe everything can be with less saturation. Okay, okay, so let's go out, and let's go here. I'd like to see if we can do something over the 8 maps. maybe on this one. Okay, so you see it's a little bit lower, so if we go out again it will be less visible. Okay, that's the idea. And now it is time to play with the renderer. Okay, so Control S to save everything, and then we can take care about the some feature there. So we can go to add a brighter illumination, because with a brighter illumination we have something more similar to a sun illumination in the space. And then, you know, we can go lower with the sky intensity because we have no atmosphere, so you can have something like 0, that's completely in the space, or maybe we can have just a little bit to simulate, you know, the bouncing of the lights over the surface. And then what about the penumbra? You see, we can have more visible or less visible penumbra. Obviously in the space we have a more you know, straight shadows with no blending, with no blurring. Okay, so that's an idea. And then that's essentially everything, because we have this one in the real position. For example, this one can be a nice camera. Let's save. If we go higher to the detail, okay, you see that we have a lot of detail over the surface. And if we play with the light, see that it's really nice. Also with the elevation, you see that our surface, it's really moon effects. If you go to render with the path tracer, we can check, we'll have a little bit more light, you know, so maybe you will need to have a little bit less sky intensity, but it is up to you, so you can decide freely as you prefer to work. Okay, so let's go back to the Martian, and that's all. Okay guys, so that's all for this lesson. You see, it was really nice to play with GeoGen to create a lunar surface. We go back to the planet and the other stuff related to the terrain we were working on, and more stuff coming up with a new alpha version really soon. And we are cooking together more stuff about CGPills to release step by step on our social media and YouTube channel. So thanks for watching guys, it was a pleasure. We'll see you really soon with a new CGPill video by Nigel Effects. Bye.